some of the greatest movies ever made are not that great. Not overrated, or I didn't like them. I mean, if you watch them today for the first time with no nostalgia, no film school guilt, then they just would not survive the hype. I mean, is The Godfather Part 2 untouchable? Or is it basically two 4-star movies intercut with each other? Is 2001 profound, or just a storyless Windows PC screensaver? Is Lawrence of Arabia a masterpiece, or just slow and boring? Hi, I'm Stephen Follows, the film data scientist. I come up with new movie records for Guinness World Records. But today, we're putting the notion of cinematic greatness on trial.
He stole that guy's pizza!
Not just one film, multiple films. A conspiracy charge. We're going to ask, when does a great movie stop being great? And you are going to be the judge and jury. I am going to be the prosecution, arguing that greatness decays. And I'm going to be the defense, arguing that greatness is permanent. Yes, I'm going to do an impression of Keanu Reeves from The Devil's Advocate poorly throughout this entire video. And I will use every first take.
Honey, please let me.
Now. You do this now.
Right, let's do this. We need a data set. And we need a data set that's been repeated over time. So we're going to use Sight and Sound's Greatest Films of All Time poll.
The best of the best of the best, sir. Yeah, with honors.
I know, but it is the longest running, regularly repeated attempt to measure the canon of great cinema. It's been running since 1952 and it comes back every 10 years. So we have 8 snapshots of what serious film culture thinks of as the best movies, from the post-war era right to now. We can see which films climb, which ones fall, and which ones just disappear. In 1952, it was just 63 critics. By 2022, it was 1,639 people. Okay, I know it made it sound like critics are not people, but
It stinks.
What I meant was there are new types of voters that they've added more recently, like programmers, curators, archivists, and academics. Another reason to use a defined list is that the top 100 can only contain 100 movies. Unless we are counting Godfather Part 2 as 2 movies, but let's not have that fight now. So anytime a new film enters the list, another one has to leave. That means greatness status can become competitive, even if the films themselves haven't changed. Can I just say that the long list of Sight and Sound's greatest films ever includes a lot of choices some people would not put in there.
Must be weird not having anybody come on you.
It stinks.
Okay, back to our main mission. I'm going to lay down 5 charges, each of them explaining a way that a great film could stop being great. Bring on the advocates. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, greatness is temporary. Culture changes, the canon shifts, films get demoted. Whoa, hold up. You're telling me that a great movie stops being great because the world got moody? Because somebody wrote a list? Come on. Greatness doesn't work like that. A masterpiece is a masterpiece. Come hell or high water. Charge 1. The culture decides a film is no longer acceptable. This is the simplest form of decline. The movie is still technically impressive, still historically important, but the content becomes morally radioactive. And when that happens, greatness status becomes hard to justify. Because greatness isn't a private thing, it's public. It's something you recommend or program or teach or celebrate. And certain films have become too compromised to hold that position. Exhibit A, The Birth of a Nation. This is cinema history's awkward uncle. People will tell you it pioneered filmmaking techniques, but in the next sentence, they'll tell you it's probably one of the most racist mainstream films ever made. Because it is. It helped normalize the mythology of the Ku Klux Klan as heroic. A lot of people won't treat it as great anymore. They'll say it's important, but probably add a word like poisonous. Exhibit B, Triumph of the Will. Technically groundbreaking. I mean, it's an early masterclass in camera movement, spatial composition, and photographic scale. And it comes from a visionary female director who helped shape cinematic language for the next 80 years. But designed to sell the Nazi Party. Even if you do actually admire it cinematically, calling it one of the greatest films ever made feels like you're giving an award to Hitler, and nobody wants to do that again. It's a good thing we're not looking at Soviet cinema. There are some serious red flags there.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Exhibit C. Small details that ruin the public label. This is the one we actually encounter most often. The content that used to pass as normal is no longer acceptable. For example, me having to bleep out the name of the dog in the Dam Busters.
Hello, Nick. Wait, what?
Come on, boy. Come on, Nick. Come on. Come on, Nick. Come on up, fella. Well, you won't have to wait for me for a long, long time. No, you won't. Going on holiday. Down to Cornwall. Rabbits. Rabbits, boy. Hey.
And of course, it's not like this is the only one. Recently, the British Board of Film Classification reclassified Mary Poppins because of the use of the word Hottentot.
We're being attacked by Hottentots. Aye, aye, sir.
A word I didn't think I needed to bleep out because I literally haven't heard of it in modern society. But it does speak to the overall point. These films aren't suddenly badly made. The issue is that their greatness status has now required a disclaimer, and the more disclaimers you add to a film, the harder it is for it to remain safe in the canon conversation. And then the last exhibit for this charge is films whose ideology has become the main thing people see. Some films contain ideologies that were once invisible to the majority audience, and then culture learns to spot them. Once the ideology becomes visible, the film becomes harder to keep praising without the qualification. So that could involve colonial fantasies, sexist power dynamics, racial hierarchies presented as natural, or national myths that rely on dehumanizing someone or something else. And while the films can remain influential, they become difficult to support in the public. So that's the prosecution case. Greatness status needs cultural permission, and when the permission is revoked, greatness status also declines. All right, I'm hearing you. Some films have content that makes folks uncomfortable now. Fine, but discomfort does not erase achievement. You're in here talking like greatness is a reward for being morally tidy. Like cinema is a Sunday school certificate. It's not. Sometimes the greatest work comes out of the ugliest parts of the human nature. Sometimes a film will show you something you don't want to know. Sometimes it shows you the world exactly as it was, and you don't like looking at it. But that doesn't make it less great. And look, if your definition of greatness is only what feels to be safe today, then your canon doesn't amount to a hill of beans. And if you want a world where art never offends nobody, nice, clean, no mess, no struggle, then that's a world the devil loves. I'm so sorry about this. It's a bit late. I kind of committed to doing it. Charge 2, guilt by association. A film can stay exactly the same and still become harder to put on a pedestal because scandals change how people talk about the work, they change how people feel about being seen to praise the work, and they change what the work means in the room.
You must be kidding, aren't you?
No, I'm serious, Johnny, because once that happens, the film changes from being great cinema and starts behaving like a test of your values and what you're willing to overlook. So as an exhibit, we've got Woody Allen. Woody Allen films were essential. I grew up watching them. They are fantastic, and they were not fringe art house cinema. They were sort of mainstream for smart person culture.
When was the first movie star that you met? Can you remember?
Yes, I met Trigger, who was Roy Rogers' horse, at a party, and we had an ongoing relationship for 2 years after that.
Did you ever meet Roy Rogers at that time?
No, I have no interest in meeting Roy Rogers, but I loved living with his horse.
But what about the smell?
He didn't mind that so much.
These films really meant something in cinema culture. Annie Hall won Best Picture, and Manhattan is a classic love letter to New York. But now those same films exist in a different emotional atmosphere. Say Woody Allen, and you don't get a conversation about cinema. You get a conversation about allegations. And so these films stand in as a moral test. Not everyone wants to take that test in public, especially when they're recommending films, programming seasons, writing essays, or casting votes. It's similar with Roman Polanski in Chinatown. This is probably the clearest example because the film itself is widely admired. People still talk about the screenplay like it's a sacred text. But Polanski is a convicted rapist who fled sentencing. So praising Chinatown now carries a lot of baggage, and some people will treat an endorsement of the film as an endorsement of Polanski himself. That interpretation is unfair to the hundreds of people who made the film, but it doesn't matter. Reputation doesn't work on fairness, it works on association. A more recent example is Kevin Spacey in An American Beauty. That film once sat comfortably inside the serious cinema greatest films ever, but now it feels a bit more like a cultural artifact. People don't tend to rewatch it, and it's a bit awkward. Spacey's personal scandals have amplified the discomfort already sitting in the film's core story, which is about a middle-aged man obsessing over a teenager.
You are one twisted Nope. I'm just an ordinary guy with nothing to lose.
To repeat, reputation doesn't work on fairness, it works on association. So even if you think the film is well made, you might be quite hesitant about praising it.
I'm great.
Not because the camera work changed, but because the social meaning has changed. You've also got what's going on behind the scenes. Let's take Last Tango in Paris. Now we know more about the production, we know more about how uncomfortable it was for the people making it, and that changes the viewing experience. Once that harm becomes part of the production's public narrative, it becomes part of the film's actual meaning. And the scene that people used to say, oh, that's quite brave, we're now quite rightly seeing as exploitative. And the canon isn't created by one critic in a room, but by institutions, like festivals, museums, cinemas, academics, streaming platforms, distributors. And when those institutions anticipate backlash, they'll program the film far less. And when they program a film less, people see it less. And when people see it less, voters feel less confident in championing it. And when people don't champion it as much, it drops out of the canon. So on this charge, the prosecution's case is simple. Greatness status can decline because the creator becomes a reputational hazard. Whoa, you're telling me that the whole movie goes on trial just because the director's a piece of work? That ain't fair. A movie has hundreds of people working on it. People who poured their lives into it. And you're gonna wipe out all of that because one person turned out to be rotten? That's like burning down the whole church because the preacher sinned. Don't get me wrong, sin is real. The devil is real. I'm very aware of that. But you don't cleanse the world by pretending the work never happened. And if you run this role properly, and you really commit, you're gonna end up with like 8 films. 8. All made by saints, except that one. And all of them boring as dishwater.
Welcome to your zoo. This is what you want. It's not what I want.
At the risk of stating the obvious, you're insane.
The sellers say you don't even need any special knowledge to run a zoo. What you need is a lot of heart.
Are you bored yet?
You are gonna
You get my point?
New enclosure.
Oh, bro.
I can keep this going as long as it takes.
We and all these animals are gone.
This is what you want. This is what you're choosing.
Stop before zebras get involved.
There's 2 zebras.
Charge 3. The greatest movies list is finite. The canon of greatest movies is a limited shelf. So when new films arrive or new voices enter the electorate, older films lose their votes. This is the most unfair one because it involves no scandal or moral shift or flaw in the original film, just a crowding issue. And we can quantify it. And the data highlights films that were once in the top 100 and are now far outside. I went through and calculated the ones that have fallen the most, and these are the ones most likely to be fired from the canon based on their best ever rank versus their 2022 rank. And they are Ivan the Terrible. This decline is huge. It's gone from 6th on the list and now it stands at 405th. That's such a huge decline. Le Terre Trema. From 9 to 553, this film was treated as one of the 10 greatest films ever made, and now it's not in the top 500. The Godfather Part 2, from 11 to 104. It's still close to the top 100, but what a fall. Raging Bull, 18 to 129. Still admired, but no longer protected. 2 or 3 things I know about her. Best rank was 41st, now it's at 462. A Godard film moving into niche territory. The Grapes of Wrath was once 13, now 668. This is how greatness decays quietly. The film's still good, and the film still stays significant, but as the canon expands, the film loses its protected status. So what takes this space? Well, recent entrants include Parasite, Get Out, Moonlight, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Spirited Away, The Gleaners and I. And also there are some older films that have only recently been given their due. News from Home, Daughters of the Dust, The Watermelon Woman, and Symbiosis Cataxiplasm. So the canon is being reallocated. That's just competition. That's hogwash. That's what that is. Now you're criticizing films because they dropped in a poll? It's a vote. And you're treating it like it's Symbiosis-Cataxiplasm. A documentary about documentary. About how the layers of observation start to replace the thing they're meant to be observing. That's exactly what's going on here. Numbers on a list have become more important than the real masterpieces they're replacing. And for what it's worth, The Godfather Part 2 is not 2 movies, it's 3. De Niro's movie, Pacino's movie, and then The Godfather Part 0 short film at the end that stitches the 2 together. And if that trilogy goes from 11 to 104, well, that just tells you something about the voters, not the movies. Charge 4. Progress makes the innovation invisible. A film can lose its greatness status because it's copied so much that it stops feeling special. It's almost like the film has succeeded so completely that the audience no longer notices what it did. Let's look at some examples. Rashomon gave cinema a structure that became permanently useful. One event, multiple accounts, competing truth, and no final answer. It forces us to watch people reshape reality to suit themselves. And the reason it can feel less powerful today is familiarity. We're all used to being absorbed through structures of crime dramas, courtroom stories, and prestige TV where everyone's account is slightly different. In Psycho, the shower scene gets all the attention, but its real impact was on story structure. It kills a major character early on, it pivots genre, and it changed an everyday space into a threat. In its time, that was quite destabilizing. Many modern viewers arrive trained already on contemporary horror, so we're expecting faster pace, louder set pieces, and more explicit violence, robbing Psycho of a lot of its power. Some films enter the canon through technological breakthroughs, and they are uniquely vulnerable to aging. Tron looked like the future in 1982. Digital imagery, a computer world, a visual style audiences hadn't seen before. But today, the same imagery can look crude because the baseline standard has shifted. Once the novelties fade, people then judge the film purely on its story and character, which were never the areas that made it famous in the first place. When I was a teenager, I saw The Blair Witch Project in the cinema, and it felt like a really cutting-edge, brave new film. Found footage felt dangerous because audiences weren't trained to read it as the genre convention. The roughness, the absence of spectacle, the suggestion-based fear all made it feel like evidence. But partly because of its success, the found footage genre became huge, and every filmmaker was shooting something on their handycam and calling it a feature film.
Oh my god.
Ripping stuff. In light of the subgenre it spawned, The Blair Witch Project feels relatively tepid. And all of this happened in living memory. Or rather, presumed dead memory if you believe the filmmakers.
Oh my god.
Finally, Airplane, and parody comedy in general. Airplane established a comedic grammar based around relentless density, deadpan jokes, background gags, idioms taken literally, and punchlines every few seconds.
How soon can you land?
I can't tell.
You can tell me I'm a doctor.
No, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Or can't you take a guess?
Well, not for another 2 hours.
You can't take a guess for another 2 hours?
It was such a great film that grammar spread everywhere, and the modern viewer often recognizes that in the structure immediately. So the film still lands, but it can feel less like a discovery because these innovations have become the default. So what I'm saying is, progress can demote a masterpiece without ever changing the actual film. A work gets absorbed into the medium, the achievement becomes harder to feel, and the film becomes easier to respect than to experience as great. Now you're punishing films for changing cinema. Come on. You're saying, well, everybody copied it, so now don't feel special. Well, that's like saying the first man to invent fire wasn't impressive because we've all got central heating. If the world stole your moves, you did something right. So when you sit there and say, I've seen this before, you're proving the film's greatness. No! Charge 5. A film can lose greatness status because modern audiences don't connect with it. That can happen without any moral scandal. It's just the shifting emotional contract of cinema. And that happens in a number of areas. First, you've got pacing and patience. Older art cinema often expects long attention spans, so they have long takes and minimal plot and lots of silence. First-time viewers can often find films like Gertrude, The Travelling Players, or Diary of a Country Priest slow, remote, and a bit emotionally withholding. It just doesn't match what we expect to see from cinema today. Whoa. Another is earnestness.
Yep. Ernest P. Worrell.
No, not quite like that. But wait over there, we'll need you later. Films that were once praised for taking on big social issues head-on can now start to feel a bit preachy or morally overconfident. I call it the Stanley Kramer problem because what I mean by that is that these classic prestige styles, big issues, big speeches, clear moral lessons, and a sense that the film is doing you a favour by teaching you something, doesn't really connect as much anymore. Stanley Kramer made loads of these, like Judgment at Nuremberg, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Inherit the Wind, and The Defiant Ones. All incredible films, but they don't align as well with the way we want to see cinema today. Older films based on uplift and sincerity can now feel quite manipulative or corny. We've all got quite good at noticing the machinery behind the emotions, and so it just doesn't work the way it used to. And then comedy ages like nothing else. Comedy itself depends on shared assumptions, so when our assumptions change, the jokes stop landing. Well, at least the way they intended it. Here it's worth returning to Airplane. Parody and pastiche often are directly tied to the relevance of their original targets. Airplane isn't just a parody of disaster movies, it's a remake of a very specific 1957 film called 0 Hour, with large parts of the script reused word for word.
I think you want to know what our chances are.
The life of everyone on board depends upon just one thing. Finding someone back there who can not only fly this plane, but who didn't have fish for dinner.
So is Airplane made less great if you're not in on that joke? Does Citizen Kane hit different if you don't know who William Randolph Hearst was? Is Blade Runner somehow less effective when you only experience it as science fiction? Does Indiana Jones lose something if you're unfamiliar with the adventure serials it's parodying? And speaking of serials, do the Ernest movies gain something if you're familiar with the breakfast cereals or fizzy drinks or snacks the character was originally created to sell? It's a bit like watching a modern Marvel movie when the last superhero film you saw was Spider-Man 2. You can still enjoy it, but you're probably missing part of what it's doing. Like 2/3.
Whoa! He stole that guy's pizza!
Sometimes it's outdated references that we don't understand. Sometimes it's targets that now feel cruel. Some of the very basic assumptions of the work just land differently. One that's changing more recently is romance dynamics. Many classic romances rely on behaviour that modern audiences would read as coercive. Persistence is framed as charm or refusal as destiny. But the problem is when the central relationship stops feeling believable or safe, the whole film collapses emotionally, even if it's incredibly well made. So that's the prosecution case. Greatness status depends on emotional resonance. And when the resonance fades, so does greatness. Okay, taste changes. Sure, folks want different things. They get impatient, they get cynical, they decide that sincerity is embarrassing. Then 5 years later, they get sick of cynicism and they want sincerity again. So you can't sentence a movie to death just because it doesn't match today's tastes. A film can go out of fashion and come roaring back. That happens constantly. Apparently, Vertigo is the second best movie ever made. And they hated it when it came out. Why do we trust them now? Half of what's loved is rediscovery anyway. People pretending they found something that was there the whole time. So don't go mistaking a quiet decade for a verdict now. A masterpiece can wait. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, greatness can decay because the culture stops granting permission to celebrate the work, because the creator becomes a reputational issue and the whole work falls with them, because the canon gets crowded and older favourites lose their slot, because progress absorbs the innovation until the achievement becomes hard to see, and finally because taste shifts and films stop landing emotionally the way they used to. None of these require the film to get any worse, it just requires for the world around it to change, and the world is always changing. So I will rest my case by saying that many of the films which were once called the greatest are no longer great. Look, I get why this Limey feels persuasive. He's got lists. He's got votes. He's got films where they cook vegetables for hours. And he's got the side that thinks that this is in fact the best movie ever made. I haven't even heard of it. I can't even pronounce it. Sight and sound? More like nothing and nothing.
Objection, Your Honor, this man has no taste in cinema.
My God, she's still peeling vegetables. I can't think of a better character witness to tell you, the jury, not to trust the other side. Because the devil loves that. He loves it when people confuse popularity with truth. Oh my God, this movie. Okay, let's bring this home. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, don't let fashion convict a masterpiece. Don't let scandal convict a masterpiece. Don't let a list convict a masterpiece. Watch the movie, then decide. So my dodgy accent notwithstanding, here's where I actually land. These lists aren't definitive. They tell us what serious film culture is rewarding right now. And over 70 years, you can see films you love shift up and down. As of 2022, here is the most recent top 10 from Sight and Sound. Number 10, Singing in the Rain. Number 9, Man with a Movie Camera. 8, Mulholland Drive. 7, Beau Travail. 6, 2001: A Space Odyssey. 5, In the Mood for Love. 4, Tokyo Story. 3, Citizen Kane. 2, Vertigo. And number 1, wow, she's still going. Jean Dillman, 23, Quai de Commerce, 1080, Bruxelles. Not satisfied? Well, let's look at the top 10 IMDb films as of right now.
Want to get down on this?
10, Pulp Fiction. 9, Inception. 8, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. 7, The Godfather Part 2. 6, 12 Angry Men. 5, Schindler's List. 4, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. 3, The Dark Knight. 2, The Godfather. And number 1, The Shawshank Redemption. So is that better? What's fun about a list is knowing what other people think is great. And what's fun about this list is that it's correct. Number 10, The Bridges of Madison County. Number 9, Hard Target. Number 8, Homeward Bound. Number 7, Swordfish. Number 6, What Women Want. 5, American Ninja 2, The Confrontation. 4, Book Club. 3, The Exigency, obviously. 2, Ransom. And number 1, I don't know, Shrek maybe? No, The Exigency again. With 1, 2, or 3 special mentions for how many movies you think The Godfather Part 2 is. Because I'm not going to give you a verdict. You're the jury. Which of these charges felt most convincing? Did any of them feel unfair? Has this made you rethink any of the films you assumed were great? Can you do a better accent of Keanu Reeves? I mean, I doubt it. And here's a surprise for you all. This is the real Keanu Reeves asking you to like and subscribe.